to the Be Different podcast. I'm your host, Nekesa, and on today's episode, we are going to discuss this book. It's been a long time coming, The Sex Lives of African Women. I couldn't wait. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
And can I first read a quote just before we get into it? Most probably my favorite quote. We often go into relationships thinking that we're going to become one with the other person. But that is just not a good idea. People don't become one, people become themselves. And so part of the work is to understand that the other person is evolving into themselves just as you are also evolving into yourself. And that evolution is very often not the same. This and many other quotes, many other amazing and mind-boggling quotes and facts were delivered through Nana Darkoa. By the way, a big shout out to Nana Darkoa. I'm a huge fan and I follow you and all your works. And ladies, how do you feel about this book? As you introduce yourself, just one word that described the book. We can start from here.
Great. Mm-hmm. My name is Sheila Molili. I don't have one word to describe the book. I have very many words. Mm-hmm. But I think it was liberating. Liberating first that African women can talk about their sex lives, which have been taboo for a very, very long time. So liberating, if I were to choose one word.
Thank you, Sheila.
Oh, hi. My name is Nicole Chepto. So if I'm to describe the book in one word, is interesting. And interesting is actually an understatement. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Yvette Wanzu. If I could describe the book in one word, I would say expressive.
Wow. Yeah. So liberating, interesting, and expressive. So Sheila, I know you went to tweet and said, oh, it's a taboo. Can you no go on and say, and elaborate?
Right from how it's introduced to us as young girls, it's do not. You know, I don't know at what point it changes to now you have the license, but it's always do not. That's why I call it liberating, because these women have actually expressed themselves in a way that, you know, not the usual, an orthodox way. Mm-hmm. Some are polyamorous, others are bisexual, others are queer, and you know, it's a whole process of evolving. So it's really interesting, liberating that actually African women can talk about their sex lives without batting an eyelid or, you know, like even if you do, so what? This is it. Yeah.
Ish. Nicole?
We're explaining our interesting.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. For me, it's interesting to see how people are living their lives in terms of sexuality and how they're embracing themselves. There's this lady who actually caught your attention as well as mine. At the time, I think she was 18, writing, living her story. And you're wondering, you're 18 and you're this much self-aware of yourself, which is really interesting. And in Africa, or rather here in Kenya, it's very difficult for you to find young ladies who are self-aware in that regard. Yeah, most of them maybe just they want to experience sex because, as Sheila said, it's been a do not since they started menstruating, or even as they were being taught as young ladies, it was a do not. So they want to experience sex as a form of rebellion. But then here you see an 18-year-old lady who has experienced a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Expressive. Why do I say expressive? Because I feel like for the longest time, and I'll echo Sheila's sentiments, sex was a do not. It was a how dare you. In fact, you know, don't even speak about it. And so viewing, there's a lot of unlearning, relearning that you do as you grow up in terms of matters sex, And expressive, I say expressive because I saw so many stories of people trying to express themselves through this thing and explaining in detail, in very raw detail and filtered detail of their some of the things that they experienced, that they wanted to experience, to try. And I thought it was so refreshing that we can finally be allowed as African women to just express ourselves through this thing called sex and explore.
Let me just give a brief picture of how the book is. The book is divided into 3 things. There's self-discovery, there's freedom, and there's healing. So different women, different ages, all African, living in different parts of the world, have told their short stories of their sex and sexuality and how they've evolved into it and how they've experienced it. So I wanted to ask you ladies, what, if anything, what was happening in your inner being, in your knowledge of sex before or during when you were reading this book? I want you to just, don't rush into it, think about it. You've known sex until this time, and then you meet this book, and you're reading about it. What's going on in you? What's changing? What's breaking? What's happening? Perceptions, thoughts. Did you want to hide it? Did you want to cover it as you were walking around with it? Did you want to read it by yourself? No one should peep in a jar with you. Please, go ahead.
Oh my. So I was reading the online copy, the PDF. So every time my daughter would come and, Mom, what are you reading? I'd literally hide it. Until one day we were working on the streets and she's telling me like, Mom, see the ili kitabu muliko mnasoma. I was like, okay.
So she knew.
Yes. So the seller look at us like, I was like, twende, we are late, twende. So anyway, for me, a lot happened. A lot happened because I felt like I was locked in this box of heterosexual the whole time. So finding that there are people who are polyamorous, there are people who are bisexual, but the one that really stood out for me was the pansexual. I absolutely loved the people who came out and expressed themselves as pansexual. Pansexual in the sense that it's not about just the physical contact, but connecting with someone's feelings, their being, their character, their intellect, their whole person. That really stood out for me. Yeah.
Wow.
My whole, I think where I was lying in reading the book is self-discovery and also healing. Hapo kwa freedom hatujafika bado. In the sense that there are things that you read, you're like, oh, okay. You remember there are things you even Google. Like, oh, what is this? What's the meaning of this? Yeah, so there's that self-discovery and thinking, okay, this could be me or not. No, this can't be me. And then healing from past traumas in terms of sexuality. Yeah. So that was what was happening to me at the time.
Okay. What before Yvette, you'll answer this and then they'll come back and answer. What was sex to you before, and then now what was your experience as you were reading? That's what I'm really trying to get from you ladies.
First of all, I just want to say, at my big age, my perception of sex is so distorted. I'm doing a lot of unlearning.
Wow.
And this was a good start. It was a good way, because I had started already, but this was a good way to just expedite. My perception of sex is almost like, for me, sex is the ultimate. It's like the culmination of you like me, I like you. We are in a committed, relationship. And then now this is how we ultimately express how we feel for each other. But living in a very highly sexualized world and how people use sex now, if you walk around with that hopeless romantic kind of perception, the streets will teach you things. So I'm doing a lot of unlearning. Another thing that I almost forgot to say this is, I've always had this perception of someone is taking, especially the male gender. They are taking. He took my virginity. No one is taking anything. It's just two people have decided to do something, and then you just come out of it. So I'm really learning to shed off this perception of someone is taking something. There's nothing to be taken, and there's not. You're a willing participant. So I'm really unlearning that.
So what was going on as you were reading the book?
What was going on as I was reading the book is knowing that sex could be, yes, the ultimate, but it's also just a form of expression. That's just what it is. Whoever you choose to do it with, however you choose to do it, and that you need to own your power, but also your responsibility in it. And then you need to be free to express. And it's not scripted. It's not scripted. It can happen in any way, and you can constantly pick and choose what works for you before you actually find what you
who you really are. So do you ladies want to answer that question of what was sex before?
I think I have, because I started with heterosexual, and I went ahead and explained the pansexual. But, okay, to answer the question then, I think what I'm unlearning or relearning is that it gets to a point where now it's intentional. It's no longer peer pressure. It's no longer, I need to get this over and done with. It's now intentional. What works for me? What do I really want out of this experience? And the culmination, I wouldn't look at it that way, because there are people who in the book say that for them they found freedom in being with this person and the other one and the other one. So I can't lock it to one particular experience or one particular person. It's just what works for you. And I'm getting to a point where I cannot judge anyone who chooses to have whatever number of sexual partners. It's their life. If that works for them, perfect. And if that doesn't work for me, then I am not on a high horse now telling them thou shall not. You get? I'm at that point after reading it.
Nicole.
Like, I think I share both your sentiments, but for me, sex before was just, sex.
Okay.
Just an act. You're dating, or you're liking each other, and then, okay, hey, can we have sex? Boom. Like that. Yeah. And pia kitambo, for me, sex was a tool of hurt. Like, sex was used to hurt me sometimes. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's that.
Okay. Another question, maybe to throw it out there. Did you, at any one point, as you were reading, and you can cite examples, did you cringe? Did you feel, hata kama ni liberal hapa, nimeenda sana? Did you at any one point as you were reading, you were like,
Yes. The first lady who talks about being polyamorous, and she's going to all these places and meeting all these people, and she's telling her husband, and she's like, I can't get one person can't meet all my needs. So I was like, we? Okay. Enyewe. Apo.
we're like, okay.
Yeah.
Too much is too much.
Too much. And also being an African woman, there's how you're cultured. The body count, you know how we talk about it here. So that one was like, okay, so this one is on another level. Yeah.
Nicole?
Okay. So, for me, I think I didn't cringe because in the era that we are, there's the internet. There are things. Okay, even if you, like, when you're watching movies, there are things you hear, and then you're like, okay, let me go and Google search. You Google search and read, and you see the things that are there. So at no point I cringed, but nilishtuka yo 18-year-old. Okay. Yeah. But no, I didn't.
Okay. Yvette.
Yeah, so many. And you know me, I'm always here thinking I'm a liberal.
Yeah.
I have never felt so stretched.
Yeah.
First of all, for someone who feels liberal, the idea, rapping, I'm here for living your true, authentic self, love who you want to love. But sometimes wrapping your head around two men having a sexual relationship, I really struggle, especially when sometimes it's said in detail. The other thing that I really struggled with, and I think Sheila mentioned, was the way that woman was saying that her needs cannot be met with one person. But there's also another story about this girl who at some point was even experimenting with prostitution. It's like, so I'm with this person, I'm with this person, I'm with this person. Yeah, at that point I was just thinking, okay, this is so dangerous. Like, so many things could go wrong. And yeah, so there I even felt, even if it's expression, that one is going a bit too far. But imagine you can't, and again, what Sheila said, you know how that thing we normally do because we talk about body count, right? And you feel like, oh, you 5, me I'm 3, me I'm so much better. I'm really learning to let go of that kind of belief. It's just, no one is better than anyone. People are just choosing to live their lives the way they feel, gives them joy, or the way they see fit. And if you feel like you have a contrary opinion, then that's you, and good for you. But don't feel like you need to judge or force your beliefs on someone else, or feel like you need to change them or awaken them. That's just how they choose to live, and you can't judge. And sometimes we say that, but you even find yourself judging in your heart and in your head, you know, just like, anyway.
Moving on.
So that happened a lot as I was reading.
So now that I feel Nana gave the African women some sort of platform to talk about sex, what do you think are the challenges and the barriers in terms of I felt like these women were given a platform to process their experiences. Do you think you have that? As
a platform?
You as a woman, yes. Do you think you've ever had a platform to process, to think about your sexual experience and to actually express? Because, okay, this is the reason why I'm asking this. I felt like there's an aspect of growth. When someone was talking through their experiences and when someone was explaining their experiences, there was an aspect of, this one, it was like this, but when I moved and did this, then there was, you know, ABC, or there are people who ended the conversation with, there's one for celibacy who said, now for me, I choose celibacy. She processed, she reached there. There are people who had the religion aspect. They had the issue of waiting until marriage. And then something happened along the way and they changed and they were like, okay, you know. So I'm just asking that because I felt like this was a very big platform. But as it is, or as it was, as I was thinking about it, it was Nana who went to the women and then asked them their stories, and then the women spoke and she wrote. But do we have such forums where you can process your sexual experiences? That's what I'm asking.
Okay. I had never looked at it that way before this experience. But I wouldn't say I have, to be honest. At this point in my life, I don't think so. It's only after I read the book that I began to really question myself and how things have been. And I relate with the ones who talked about religion so much. Like it was introduced from a point of, thou shalt not, if you do, then you're sinning against God, and you know what happens when you sin against God and all that and all that. So I remember something, I'm a storyteller, so I will take you to another, I will divert a bit just to make it easy. Not really easy, relatable. In August, as we were being trained to conduct the elections and all that, all those things were being done in a classroom. So there's this particular classroom I was in, and they were talking about Mary and the way she was a virgin before she met Joseph and she conceived and all that. What caught my attention is how that story came about, that the Bible says that she had not known a man, but on that blackboard it was written, she had not committed sin. So in my mind, what registered is committed sin. So that's how sex is introduced to us from that point of committed. Yeah. So if you do this, you're committing sin, you're committing adultery. It's not about you expressing yourself. It's not about you owning your space, because that's a very personal space.
It's not about discovering yourself.
It's all about committing and not committing and keeping yourself a certain way until you get to that point of no return. So I think at that point, that's when I began asking myself, have I really ever thought about this intentionally? Ama ni zile tu a thought crosses by and then you lenga it or but I would not say I have had a platform.
Nicole?
Well, at this age, I don't think there's any platform. even in Kenya, like we are reading books. I had that book, and when I carried it home, I would make sure, as I am reading, either there's another book
Covering
it, because we have kids at home.
Okay.
So so you get, so if say your small sibling sees and goes and tell you, mommy, Nicole is reading this type of book. What do you think that would, even something I usually tell my mothers and my aunties, like, okay, sawa, there's this thing called sex. What are you guys teaching us at this point? You understand the age that we're living in. How are you as mothers and aunties trying to raise us or educate us in this sexual thing? As in, the platform has to start from home. That's what I think. Your mother has to speak to you about sex, in as much as they didn't, but they should try to at least speak to you about as little as contraceptives. Let it not be shulendo inawafunza about contraceptives or your friends, or you get to know sex from the first man you have sex with, or your friends who have experienced it before you. So I think we don't have a platform, and we really should have a platform. However conservative your family is, however religious we are, I think we should then have conversations in that aspect, but allow people to be free to express what they think about it without shushing them. Like, we don't speak about that.
No. What about the song?
Have I ever had a platform? Even the platforms that I thought I had, you had to be politically correct.
Yeah.
Don't be coming here saying everything that is running through your mind. It's like there's sometimes when you say some things, that is so cringe, but okay. So I don't. I've had the opportunity to be able to have those conversations, but it's like there's a line you don't cross. And as long as there is a line that you shouldn't cross, then I don't think you feel like that's a platform that's doing what it needs to do.
Yeah.
So I don't think I have fully, no.
Yeah. Why am I asking this? Because so many women, even the ones that are, that told their story, so many of us, our sexual experiences have been marred by trauma. Trauma coming from child abuse, instances of rape, incest, and the fact that these platforms are not there, you could feel the pain of some of the women, that were telling their stories. And when you start anything on that, already something that is already traumatized, do you really experience it 100%?
Of course not.
Unless you really go through the healing process, which is another whole chapter by itself. I really sympathize with the mother of that 10-year-old girl who died a couple of days ago. And when you talk about trauma, I think that is trauma personified. Like, in a sense, you can really look at and understand. And I think that's the story of very many African women, that your first experience is usually not voluntary. Number two, the perpetrator is someone very well known to you, is actually an authority figure in some way. And I think that's where probably the trauma begins, because this person who should be protecting you is the one who violates you. So as you grow up, you grow with, already you're traumatized. So how then do you get to that point of healing and expressing your true, authentic self with someone who you hopefully believe that will not hurt you again, because you're already starting from hurt. So I think it's a very delicate one.
Your comments?
Yeah, that's something I even have to breathe through. Because when you mentioned that story, a lot of people, sadly so, their first sexual experiences were not the best, either because it wasn't something that you freely went into, or you even went into it and at a point you said, no, but you were made to think that you were coerced, and the way it went down, you really didn't want to do it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there's the unfortunate instance of abuse.
Yeah.
I don't know how we are going to remedy that, because for me, even as a parent, my greatest fear is when do they know too much, and when do they need to know enough just to be empowered? That's a constant struggle for me. I wouldn't want, especially in, being an African, I wouldn't want my daughter to be walking down the street and everybody knows her as ule mjuaji, ule mtoto mjuaji. But at the same time, I want her to be empowered. I don't want her to be the way me I was. When I went into my first sexual experience, I thought I knew everything. And now, looking back, in retrospect, that's 8 years ago, I knew nothing. I knew nothing. You know? And I don't know. I don't know. I just hope that moving forward, people, like when you think of your first experience, it will be an informed decision. And it won't be an experience. Because, of course, it's the first time you're doing something. How do you know what you like, what you don't like? So it won't be actually your best experience. But I hope it will be something that most African women want to look back and think, hey, that played out with Baya. Because it sets, in a way, it sets a tone also for how you view sex, you know, as you continue. Yeah.
Nicole?
I'd just say it's very difficult for you to view sex as that pure thing that you would then come to enjoy if you've been traumatized through it. Yeah, just as Sheila said, unless you heal from that, forgive yourself if you think you had a part in playing that trauma. You see, when you're saying, I wish maybe I hadn't dressed like this, then maybe they wouldn't have had the fantasy in their heads. And then you forgive yourself for that, if you think that would help you heal, and then try and forgive the other person. And they say forgiveness is not about them, it's about yourself. So forgive them, let go, whether or not they ask for forgiveness, and then maybe try see if you can, gradually come to terms and maybe try and enjoy that which was meant to be enjoyed.
Yeah. I have something has come to mind. I feel like as women, we are very important when it comes to sex. And yet, we have allowed every other person to speak about sex to us, or on us, or about us. I don't know what to use. Like, why have we allowed men to perpetuate this thing of nilimkula, nilimnini? Why have we allowed society to brand us as, whores, and that's a bitch, that's a whore, that's what?
Yeah.
Why are we allowing other people and other voices, and yet ours can't be felt? And when it's felt, it's either at the point of death or at the point of you're done. It's beyond salvage.
Yeah.
We are saying someone can't report rape because of stigma. We are saying you can't talk about child abuse because, the same thing.
Yeah.
When are we, all this secrecy? I feel like as women we are so silent, and yet we play a very huge role when it comes to sex.
I think we have to change a lot of things. One, as an African society, I think we value image so much. So much more than everything else.
Okay.
Such that, Nekesa, if you're in a relationship that is toxic even to your children, you will be told vumilia. Pray for that person until pray until something happens. But honestly, as you're praying until something happens, what is happening to the children?
You're dying, and your children
what is happening to you? So I think we have really elevated image so highly, more than the human dignity. And I think that's where the problem is.
Wow. That's very powerful, Sheila.
From how we, right from childhood, okay, now things are changing a bit, but the whole image aspect, I think, is what is taking us down the drain. Children are suffering, people are suffering, people are living with childhood traumas up to their mid-30s. That's when they're coming to unlearn and getting to a platform where they can say, I grew up in this family, we went to the best schools, we never lacked anything, but I remember my parents always fighting. I mean, so this image thing is a mess, honestly. I think we need to begin from that point.
That's true.
You know, when you were saying you can be in a toxic relationship but just leave. So this is something I got from Estelle and Bingy. And the question I was asking myself, when is the right time to leave or speak about you feeling invisible? So that's actually something that we also need to learn. And I think in this space, I think some parents are understanding that, okay, I don't think in their traditional sense, people were, for lack of a better word, beasts, because in this generation, there's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of vengefulness, so much hatred, so that people take it out on their wives, on their children. And so something that maybe in the while they were growing up, they didn't experience it. So now when you have a person who's vengeful, who has a lot of hatred for example, women, if a person was traumatized by their mother, so now they are growing up with this hatred for women, and then you're their wife or wife, then how do you expect that person to treat you? They treat you so bad, and then your parents are telling you to just
stay through it.
Die.
Not just your parents, the whole everyone, society, all of us, we are here. Excuse me, please, Mumilia.
I want to disagree with Nicole a bit before we move to Yvette. I tend to think that we are very privileged that we have such a platform. Back in the day, there was no such platform. So people vumiliaed literally and brought up monsters who also didn't know how to express themselves. So now that we are more expressive, that's when we are seeing actually people acting out what they saw then in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s. It's our generation that is violating their wives and their husbands. Why? They have lived up with pent-up anger for such a long time. Yeah, so I don't think it wasn't happening then. It was happening, but people were quiet about it. Yeah.
And also, I feel like now, I was talking to my godmother about it. I feel like there are two things happening, and this sounds scary, but it's like, you know how a snake normally inatoanga ile ngozi yake. I feel like that's what the universe is doing now with everything that's going on. It's like it's cleansing, self-cleansing. But also, I feel like we're also in a very woke age. There's like an awakening that you cannot explain. And with that great awakening, there are many good things and many bad things that could happen. So people now are expressing, they're living out what it is that they have. One thing, and older people mock us about this all the time, is hii generation hamjui kuvumilia. Then they used to know how to bottle it up, you know. Now the difference between them and us, which is why now all these social evils seem like the norm, is because us now we are living it out, we express it. That's why. I think that's why. What is it again that you were saying?
We were saying the issue of how women are so important, but we've allowed everyone else to speak into.
Personally, I feel like people say they've been traumatized by, you know, it could be a perpetrator, someone has done something to you. I mean, something that also really made me feel, something that traumatized me was religion. Because you know, when you're so, because of me being in the church and you have like a post there in the youth, you need to walk properly, you need to act right, yeah? And my first sexual experience was so good, but I felt so bad about it. I was like, Mungu. You know, and how you were thinking, some people even keep saying, may I wait until marriage, like it's something they're so proud of, but deep down they're just feeling, why did I even wait? So there's so many times when I've done something, like maybe made out with someone or been a bit too cozy with a stranger, and I start feeling like, someone is mulikaing me and they're not very happy with me. So finding that balance as women, and you know how religion really drums it down on you. You need to be pure. You need, as a woman, you need to be chosen right. You need to be a model wife. You need to be this and you need to be that. That's why maybe with all those beliefs, we feel as women, first of all, we need to be picked. First of all, a well-behaved woman is one who is composed, doesn't talk too much, doesn't express herself too much, dresses in a certain way. So with all that being drummed in you, surely you won't feel like your voice needs to be heard. And even, it's just the other day, I realized that you can have a conversation with someone. You don't tell them, oh, that doesn't feel right to me.
About
I don't
sex.
Like that. About sex. Even while you're having it.
Yeah.
What is this thing for we keep having oopsie pregnancies? You're just like, a condom conversation is so clean.
Yeah.
Well, if we are doing it, let's just do it. Nini, badai. But sasa, Nini, repercussions badai is a whole baby.
Yeah.
Out of a 3-second conversation you'd have had and prevented so many things happening. And that's something that I'm even learning how to do now at my big age.
Yeah.
To just say, oh, that doesn't feel right. I
Yeah.
don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So it's we're going to take a while as women to evolve and learn to speak out certain things, you know, and even express certain things.
And that was so big here.
Yeah.
I liked that women could say, excuse me, no, let's stop, let's do this. Tukunywe maji tuendelee. We order food, we go on. We can't, because there's so much shame, you know, and that's the thing I was saying about every other person telling us about sex and describing it to us and prescribing it to us, and we just take it and carry it.
Yeah.
Like that's the image, that's the description, and that's, you know, what I'm taking with me. First, let's talk about our best stories. Best story from the book. Can I start? The courage, I don't know whether it's the first story, I suspect it's the first story, but the courage that lady had for marrying someone from the internet. Woo!
The Senegalese
woman, you have taken that cup home. But that life of, you know, what she was given afterwards, was she a second or a third wife? And she, excuse me, Senegalese men, this woman was built for a house. Right? She was built for a house, being the third wife, and what else? And the husband used to rotate.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know why, but this woman made that life seem so goals. Okay, but that part 4, she told the man, we have to get married before we meet. And they did the thing online, guys. And then now that's when they met. They met as husband and wife. Where? In this our internet. Hi, moving on. Your best stories.
My best story is, there were 2. There was the elderly couple.
Yeah.
And there was another one, I can't quite remember, but the pansexual ones.
Yeah.
The ones who were really in touch with each other, and they give each other space to grow and bring their A game, and not really be focused on this is the way to do it, my way or the highway. Like just grow together, enjoy good conversations, enjoy good food. Like I liked even the way they were describing the way they were cooking. Like one is so organized and neat, the other one is so messy, they will leave evidence of what they were cooking, and they're okay with that. And I felt like this is so intense and so legit. It doesn't have to be fake. I absolutely loved that. Yeah.
Nicole?
I even, there's something I remember once saying, that I even love the way her mouth forms when she's talking. I like even those small things that look so insignificant. Yeah.
Well, for me, it's, I think, Estelle. And what she like, what her story made me think is like the way we give a negative connotation to heartbreaks. Like, is being heartbroken growing pains? Is it part of growth? So that was the most interesting thing I got from her. Like, it's one of the things
that stood out for you.
Like, heartbreaks in our society is like, that is the reason why I think we don't want to be left or to leave, because atutaki, oh, I have been heartbroken, oh, Kanairo imenifanya ile kitu, and we don't see heartbreaks as a point of, okay, Nicole, stop. This is what, like self-evaluation. Okay, this is what you did during this relationship. Were you okay with this? When you were feeling like this, why didn't you speak up? So is there something that we need to change? Are you happy? So then moving on to the next relationship, you have learned, and then maybe you'll do the speaking up thing in the next relationship.
Wow.
Honestly, it was so hard for me to pick a favorite story because everything was teaching me something. But however, I really liked the older couple. There's this older couple. I think it's the same ones you mentioned. There's even a time they were mentioning they got married just so they could cover the, there's this thing for inheriting when you have property together, just to be able to make sure you can take that property when your partner is no longer there, so you don't have issues with that. I really liked how they granted each other being, and they were very honest about their needs, their wants, and they allowed each other space to grow. And being able to experience that at an old age it's such a blessing to just live your authentic self because we've seen people saying, oh, I wish I could go back, I would do this, but imagine you can even do it now, and them having the courage to do it then, with all, I'm sure maybe they were facing criticism and all that. I found that I thought it was so good. I thought it was so good. Something came to mind as Nicole was speaking. When you were saying sometimes heartbreak can be redirection. That's something I learned from my previous, not the previous one, no, the other previous one. Relationship.
No, we're not cringing.
You know how as women, it's okay. You know how as women, we always come out as the victims because we don't know how to talk. Oh, he even had this and this and that. And I remember at some point catching myself and saying, even you, what did you do? So even you had some toxic traits, but him, because he's a man and he doesn't have time to be yapping, he would go and tell everyone the way even knew you were toxic. I realized that a lot of women are in heterosexual relationships because that's how it should be. And there are certain interactions in such relationships sexually that don't get you to where you need to go. And you're so scared of admitting that even to yourself. But when you look at those who have stepped out and gotten something else that they thought would be edifying to them, now they are happy. So I think it would be so sad to die without getting the sexual experience that you wanted, that you did it how you wanted, and you got something out of it. And I hope that's something that every African woman gets to experience.
That's very powerful, Yvette. But you see, when I'm saying platforms, when I'm saying processing, when I'm saying unpacking, those are the things I mean. Let me use this example. You've said something very powerful. We are even afraid, and you've mentioned it twice. There's something you said about you do something in someone, and then you judge yourself. Like, that's the immediate place you go to. You don't concentrate on the good part. We rarely just sit and say, oh wow, that was so nice. We rarely do that, and we rarely come to ourselves and say, hey, that was me. That was good. We immediately go to the guilt, the beating ourselves up, the what was that? Kimbia kwa Mungu.
Repent.
Talk to our Father and repent. I want to read a statement here.
Okay.
Tell me how true it is. Sex can help you figure out the type of person that you are. Sex has definitely helped me know myself. The guys that I have been with and the ways we have had sex has helped me to figure out the kind of woman that I am, and I know the type of man I want in my life. How true is it? Just your feelings about that statement.
I think there's something that Yvette has said that really resonates with that. That if you keep attracting at a certain kind of people, then there is something about you that you also need to fix. And I think that summarizes it. That the people, okay, that's a different story. I mean statement. Let me just add something else. The guilt and the shame is how you are socialized from the very beginning, so that even if not someone comes to you next and tells you that from primary, because there are people who are active even then, what was your first thought?
That they had sex?
Yeah.
I just go like, wow, please tell me about it. First, I used to like, tell me about it. And then I'd go home thinking, oh my God, this chick has already done it. Yani, oh.
Yes.
Like I just go processing in my head.
Exactly. So that she has done it already puts her in a certain category. So when are we going to unlearn that, so that now we get to that point of saying, this is the kind of a person I am, and this is what works for me. This does not work for me. I think it needs to really be intentional, and from a point of self-awareness, that I will not carry this guilt and this shame. If something happened to me, I will take the lessons and move forward. If it's something I can fix, I will fix it. If it's beyond me, then I will learn from it and move on. So the guilt and the shame, and I think a lot of stuff is from our socialization.
From the 3 themes in the book, there was self-discovery, there was healing, and there's freedom. I think I heard Nicole saying, you said you had the self-discovery. Healing. Amen, sister. So what themes do you resonate with? And this is now from where you are as a person. Yvette.
You said self-discovery.
Yes, healing and freedom. There were those 3 themes.
I feel like the way I live my life, it's like I experience all of them. Zina nini tu, they yo-yo, you know. Definitely at self-discovery. Kwanza last year, you know, I'm just at a point where I'm really trying to see what works for me and what doesn't, unapologetically.
I love that.
So yes, self-discovery, I have experienced it in real time even, quite recently, and even now still, and I don't know even what tomorrow is going to look like. Healing, I have a master's in suppressing my feelings, so that one is going to take a minute. However, I am in the process of healing. As I mentioned, I'm unlearning a number of things, so I'm definitely in the process of healing, and I don't think that that's something that's going to happen in a short period. I think it's something that I'm going to continuously work on. So yes, I am healing, especially healing from my first distortion of even almost hating sex was having, you know, getting pregnant. It's just like, ooh, that is where it gets you. That has not. So I need to unlearn that. You know, it's not such a bad thing. You just maybe didn't take the necessary precautions, or you went into it without certain kinds of knowledge. So I'm learning that, trying to see if I want to use contraception, what does that look like? Having a conversation with my partner. When I engage in sexual activity, doing it from a point of, even me, I want to do it. This is what I want. This is what I want to get out of it, you know, and not coming out of it feeling used or feeling, I don't, like, victim mentality can only take us so far as women. Just own your power, you know, that, what was the last thing you mentioned? You said self-discovery, healing,
and freedom.
And freedom. Freedom, I do have my freedom. However, I feel like still, because of the society and where I am as an African woman, I still need to be politically correct to some extent. So it's going to take a while maybe for me to get my freedom the way I would want to experience it. And I'll put it even, I'll mention like same-sex relationships, you know. Personally, I've known a number of people who have been in same-sex relationships, and they seem to be doing well. And the only thing that's wrong with their relationship is because they are with someone of the same gender. And these people end up parting ways. And, you know, life goes on. You marry, you have kids, and you do this. But these people are not happy, you know, with the path that they chose. And I really hope that we get to a point where, as society, even as parents, we just allow people to be. We just allow people to be. People have let go of relationships because that seemed like the right thing to do, but that's not what they wanted, or that's not what filled their cup. So I hope we get there. I hope we get there. Yeah, so even freedom for me, I don't know, not yet. Maybe to some extent, yes, but not fully there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Sheila?
I feel the same way too. Like I don't have one particular one that that I would say I'm at this point right now. But I think there's a lot, especially from how it was introduced to where we are right now. And my heart goes out to those people who they were forced into it. Yeah. So that part of it was not my fault. I need to accept this and move on. Because from the book, there was a lot of that. There was a lot of child abuse. And I tend to feel like this mirrors the society in a certain way. So as a society, we need to heal. And I keep saying this many times, that even if we have to talk about women being liberated, we also need to look at what is happening in the psychology of men. Why would I look at my niece and think she's attractive sexually? What would inform such a decision? So as much as there is healing from the women, there also needs to be healing from men, to also unlearn that women are not objects of sexual pleasure or whatever, so that you don't look at someone in a miniskirt and you think the only thing you can do with that person is sleep with them. They're a whole person. They're a whole package. There's probably a lot more that could be beneficial both ways than just the sex. So sex has been used as a tool to hurt, to instill pain, to instill fear. A lot happens, and you ask yourself, where will this distortion, when will we make it right? Because, as I said before, I can tell stories. If you remember several instances of post-election violence, there are many victims of rape. So why would I look at someone who could be my sister and decide the only pain I can instill in that person is to sexually abuse them? You get? So healing is very key. I think healing is very key. Self-discovery also is very key, so that you know what works for me. If this person is in a heterosexual relationship and this one is in a homosexual relationship, does that take away who they are as a person? So I don't look at them and think because I'm heterosexual, then I have a right to judge or insult, or even people have been killed for being homosexual.
Usually there's someone who's banned.
Yeah.
There's a lady who's banned.
Yeah, so I think we have a lot of twisted perceptions about sex that need a lot of unlearning, that needs a lot of being intentional and seeing the other person as a human being, besides just thinking of sex and what you could get from their anatomy. Who are they as a person? Yeah.
Nicole, you want to comment on those three themes? You said you were on self-discovery. And healing.
Yeah,
okay.
Self-discovery and healing. I resonate with what Sheila said. Sex has been a tool for hurt, a tool to instill fear for me personally. So when I say healing, it's literally healing and forgiving the other person for that, and forgiving myself for the part I took in keeping quiet about it, and for accepting those things to be done to me, and for me to forgiving ourselves, both me and the other person.
Okay.
Can I say, when you say accepting those things to be done to you, sometimes we only do things based on what we know at the time. And sometimes we experience certain things because maybe Maya Angelou says, when you know better, you do better. So at the time, that's all you knew. So maybe if that's something that was done to you, it's not necessarily a case of accepting. Actually, now I need to forgive myself because even me accepted that to be done to me. Just extend grace, knowing that it's okay to be wrong than to say I was wrong, right? But how do I move on from it? So sometimes if someone, especially the person is the one who caused you harm, it's okay to just own that they were on the wrong and they did wrong you. And so your part is just to find your own healing, and maybe in when you're ready to forgive, and then move on. Don't be too hard on yourself about you accepting them doing that to you, especially if they were the ones on the wrong. I mean, clearly they are the problem, you know. So extend yourself some grace, a lot of grace. And if you are wronged, you are wronged. You know, someone can step on you and then you're like, pole, ata mimi nileka mguu hapo. No, no.
And sometimes it's not that you did something, it's just who they are. They expressed who they are and you are the victim. And it happens a lot to victims. You feel like, oh, I did this, I attracted it. You will even hear people, victims of domestic violence say, ni mimi nilimprovoke, ni mimi nilimjibu vibaya. Like, why doesn't that person hit their boss?
And while we're at it, can also we as women, and I had a consultation with a co-worker the other day, for throwing such vacuous statements like, even what was she wearing? When you leave the house wearing something like that, what do you expect? No. It's us who's perpetuating that thing for, because you are a certain way, now something can be done to you. You know? Let's just grant people freedom, even with how they choose to dress. Of course, as a woman, you would know, if I'm going to church, maybe I want to tone it down. If I'm going here, I want to do this. But that thing for saying, at even her, she was doing this, and coming from a woman, no. I've seen people catcall people wearing very, like, clothes that are not revealing, and it still doesn't stop someone who's mannerless from catcalling and doing all manner of things. So sometimes it's not you, it's actually just the person, you know. And so let's not perpetuate that as women. I've so many times in the CBD, and the CBD is a very unsafe place to be, whether you're dressed modestly or not. I've called out men for doing certain things to women, you know, saying, oh, things like size yangu or umevaa hivyo, sijui come, let's go this way. I just say no, you know. And if 2 or 3 women just stop and say mbona unamfanyia hivyo ama mbona unamuita hivyo, so saying ata yeye amevaa aje as you walk past, I think we could change. We could change that. So even as women, but let's stand up for each other.
I wanted to say about the 3 things, like you guys said. It's not like start and stop, start and stop, start and stop. In self-discovery, I feel like there's healing and there's freedom. Actually, they all come out. And then something that I actually highlighted as I was reading, freedom is not a destination that one arrives at and can choose to stay at forever and ever. Freedom is a constant state of being, an energy and state that we need to nurture and protect. Freedom is a safe home that one can return to over and over again. So it's from this forum, we are free. Like free, feel like you've attained something, you've attained some freedom. From one step, you take a step, you're like, okay, I've discovered something about myself, now I'm free here, I'm free here. It's like the steps you take, right? I feel like they all marry into each other, and the healing continues as we talk, as we discuss such things, as we put them on the table. Because this thing of a woman's sexual perspective will only come out as either they are dying or it's from these organizations that are, you know, anti-rape, what child abuse, nini. It needs to stop. We also need to tell our stories from a positive side.
I hear you.
Anyway, so parting shots or takeouts. If you remember something from the book, please mention something that stood out, or just a parting shot generally from what we've spoken about.
There's something I would want to highlight about, there were a lot of women who either experienced miscarriages or abortion, and all these things are really swept under the carpet, and we expect people to shape up and move on like nothing happened. And I asked myself, why? Why do we look at it that way? Why don't we look at it from okay, there was this whole discussion about abortion the other day, and there were people coming in and saying that is like murder, and there are other people who are saying that's a human right. But all that notwithstanding, I think people need to get to a space where if something like that ever happens, then you need to find a space where you can mourn if you need to mourn, heal if you need to heal, so that you get out of it and you're not looking back many years later and you're carrying that burden. Because I felt like quite a number of women in that book had that. They were carrying those memories or would have beens and stuff like that. So I felt like those are conversations we need to have. Why would I find it so hard next to tell you something like that happened to me? But rarely do we ever get to that point of having such discussions. So I think besides just the sex lives and everything, it comes to a level of vulnerability. Yeah, like you have to be vulnerable to a certain level to experience the healing, to experience the self-discovery and all that. So I feel like we need to allow ourselves the space to be vulnerable. In the right spaces, of course. Annette kept talking about political correctness and all that. But just that vulnerability of, I mean, this space right now, this is how I feel. If I have a support system that can help me walk through it, not carrying guilt and shame and all that, so that as we move on, we are lighter. We are discovering, we are experimenting, but we are lighter. We are not moving around with burdens on our shoulders and in our hearts. Yeah.
I like what you've said. I just want to add something before now we go on. You said something about not only the sex lies, but I find that sex is all that.
Yes.
Sex is inclusive of all that. If there's one thing I took out from this book, is that sex is so big.
Yes.
Sex is not just about the
physical
intercourse or the physical. Or sex is a whole thing.
Yeah.
From what I learned from this book. And even that part of miscarriages and abortions and the effects of it thereof are part of, you know, the sex. And I agree with you. Why should I talk to you about money, my money life, the way I'm in Minnesota, I'm in bed, it's Kenya. Nicole, go on.
My takeout is from this lady in the book called Ebony. She says that every day she asks herself, are you happy? If not, make a change.
Wow.
So I think that's what I'm trying to inculcate in my own life.
Yes, please.
Hey, you ilikata lakini inculcation.
Wow, actually there's so many things to take out. But I always preach about this, and I think that's what I'll end with.
Yeah.
Just own your journey and just be you. Just be authentically you. Especially in matters your sexuality and how you choose to experience sex even. Just know what works for you. It would be sad to leave this earth knowing that you are just living someone else's sex life. Wow. That's such a waste of a good degree. A good life. Hey! You can't imagine telling God I want to come back. What is that? So just really, wherever it catches you, if you catch this conversation in your 50s or 60s, if you're 15 and you're thinking whether now is the time to go and do it, and empower yourself. Empower yourself. And I just want to tell the girls who are thinking the way I used to think, and I'm still learning to stop thinking that way. There's nothing being taken from you. It's you, it's your life, you're in charge. Do whatever it is that you need to do, but empower yourself and make decisions from a point of knowledge. And African women are beautiful. Whether you're dark, whether you're light, it's not the light-skinned only that have their sex lives popping. On your, it starts with you. Just really fall in love with yourself, and then how you express yourself sexually, it's going to be good. And it's a never-ending process. Sometimes you go 3 steps back, you go 5 steps forward, but allow yourself and give yourself grace to constantly reinvent. That's what I would say.
I love that. Thank you so much for watching, guys. And if you can pick this book up, please pick it up and read it. Not only for the ladies, even you gents, please pick it up and let's have this conversation. Comment, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you and bye-bye.